Allan Zeman, this is a real pleasure.
It certainly is a pleasure to see you again.
You haven't changed. I was saying before off camera that you still look as young as ever, much younger than I feel.
Well, my secret is to count backwards, and so everybody else goes forward. I go backwards, so I'm getting younger.
Now, Alan, tell us about the great evolution. And great is used a lot, but really has been a fabulous evolution of Lan Kwai Fong and all of the main elements of its business today.
Well, Lan Kwai Fong basically started off as a nightlife area, uh, catering to restaurants, bars. I started probably about 35 years ago, and when I was basically in another business in supply chain management, fashion business, and slowly started to buy up the property in the area when property was very cheap and people didn't really know what I was doing. I slowly became the largest landlord in the area. And as you well know, and everybody else, property in Hong Kong was definitely the right way to go because the values actually, went crazy over the years, and continues to escalate. And so Lan Kwai Fong today I've got many tenants. I've built new buildings. One of the main properties is California Tower, which is a real go-to place. It's a lifestyle building. Because of land being so expensive in Hong Kong, we go horizontal, vertical rather than horizontal, and because it's so expensive. And so we've got lifestyle buildings where you've got restaurants on upper floors, which maybe doesn't really work in many different cities, but because it's Hong Kong, it does work in Hong Kong. And because of it, the brand has become synonymous with entertainment, especially here in Asia. And we've also, about 10 years ago, had many calls. We constantly get calls to open up in other places, other countries. Everybody wants a Lan Kwai Fong. And so we opened up in Chengdu, in China, in the western part of China. And that is now about 10 years old and been very successful in the Chinese side. And we constantly are getting asked by different cities in China if they can have a Lan Kwai Fong. Because of that, we're looking at different areas, different places. Doing business in China is very good, but can be difficult with all the bureaucracy and that kind of things, not unlike many cities in the world. And so we're doing something called asset light, whereby we'll have partners who put up the money and we'll build it, design it, manage it for them. And you can expand much quicker that way. And that's basically in Lan Kwai Fong today is, we get offers all over from all over the world, but I prefer to stick here in Asia. We also have now gone to Phuket to Thailand. Thailand's a very good market for tourism, and I own a hotel in Thailand, which is called Andara. We've got many Australian customers actually who do come.
Lock them out.
Well, they're actually fun. They actually add an element of fun to the air to the hotel. Nice people, very carefree, loving, and rowdy can be sometimes, but they're good. They're a good group, and we then also are now doing a joint venture in Panga in Phuket across the bridge, which is 2.5 kilometers of beachfront. We're in the process of building a golf course, a huge golf course right on the water. It's really amazing site, and we've got villas and condos, and we will have a hotel. We're in negotiation with one of the hoteliers to build a five-star hotel there on the golf course. It looks magnificent, and so that's another big project that we're doing at the moment. So we're constantly looking at Lan Kwai Fong has expanded now to innovate, to design, build. We have in-house architects. We have in-house management. We own many restaurants here in Hong Kong, and of course have faced the problems that the world is facing with COVID-19. That has definitely not been an easy time, but Hong Kong luckily has bounced back pretty quickly. The borders are still shut down. It's still 14-day quarantine for anyone coming into Hong Kong, and so that's been a problem. Tourism does not exist at the moment, but I guess locals got fed up with staying home, and they've started to go out, and they've spent. The Hong Kong government is really, and the medical doctors have done a very, very good job in controlling the virus here, because we basically have about 1,065 cases, which about half of them are returnees to Hong Kong from overseas, and luckily we've had that 14-day quarantine, so we've been able to test them as soon as they arrive in the airport. And that's helped in keeping the numbers low. And we've only had 6 deaths. Actually, again, 3 of them were from overseas returnees, and the balance. So really, we've had about 3 deaths, which the local transmission. And I think it's one of the lowest in the world. And so I really do take my hat off to the government, because they've done an amazing job in keeping it, controlling it. The good news is, the most important thing is, everybody does wear a mask. From day one. We had experience from SARS 5 years ago, and everybody learned that the masks do protect you. I think the U.S. is just waking up to the fact. In the past, the doctors were saying, "Oh, no need to wear masks. It's optional." But if you think about it logically, this virus transmits through droplets, and if you are wearing protection, if you are wearing a mask, then you might get some droplets that'll come through, but you'll have less. And so if you do get infected, it's just natural. You'll have a smaller infection, a lighter infection. And so these are things that are very, very important. Also, the social distancing has been another very important. 1.5 meters social distancing, and people really do follow it. And I think that's been one of the reasons that we've been able really to so far overcome it. I mean, everyone's always worried about a second wave, and I worry about the 14-day quarantine. If we take it away, all these people that returned, they would have been in the society. And so I think basically everybody's hoping for a vaccine that will come quickly. Yeah.
Maybe that's your next investment, Allan, into a vaccine. I mean, I'm sure then you could buy the rest of Hong Kong with the return on that investment,
and maybe the rest of the world.
Well, you could almost do that. And at this present time, they would probably give it to you, because the world is really in a spot of bother at the moment, as the English would say. Yes. Businesses that are going through COVID and having trouble opening the doors, and really not that positive towards the future, because they really can't see past the next week. What sort of advice would you give?
I would say that, the important thing is obviously understand if you are open, depending on, U.S. has a whole host of other problems. But in Hong Kong, the important thing is we know that it's local consumption, because there are no tourists at the moment. And so look at what your customers like, what's their habits, how do you make them feel comfortable. I mean, in some of the restaurants that we have buffet on Saturday and Sunday for the food. We now have glass cases that cover the buffet, and then you have staff that, the customer will come and point to what they want, and the staff will then take it out. Everyone, especially in restaurants, all the staff wear masks, and temperatures are taken when guests come in. Tables are still spaced 1.5 meters. So you've got to make people feel safe. I mean, otherwise, if people don't feel safe, they're not going to spend money, and they're not going to come out. That's in this environment. It's the virus is really something that is frightening, because it's a health problem, and of course, no one wants to die. Everybody wants to.
We do.
Yeah, and that's the most important thing. So the key is really to make people feel comfortable and to know that your establishment, literally, if you're a retail shop, whatever it is, that people don't feel worried about shopping or coming into a place and suddenly getting infected.
Mm,
That's the worst thing. And so I think these are the only guidelines that you can take. And then,
mm,
of course, your pricing is a time when many people are suffering. Hong Kong has the highest unemployment that we've ever had at the moment, and so it's really coming up with special deals. Also, if you're in the restaurant business, home delivery suddenly become
mm,
a very important factor. And so it's catering, re-engineering your product in order so that it's people, let's say if you're a steakhouse, obviously most people are not going to order steak to go,
mm,
and so it's you might re-engineer to burgers or that kind of things,
mm.
so easier to deliver. So you've got to be innovative. You've got to really look at the situation, the problems, who's your customer, what can they afford, and make the sale simple. That's the most important thing. It's got to be a no-brainer.
Look, can you tell me what's happening in Hong Kong? Hong Kong it's getting a bit of a bad rap, but so are many other countries and locations
Yeah.
too. But for a place to do business and investment, it was just about the epicenter of the world. Is that mantle slipping?
It's still the same, I can tell you. I mean, obviously, we have a security law that was passed the other night, and basically, um, that got, politically, uh, it's a bad rap against China, but to be quite honest, the majority of the people in Hong Kong are very happy that the security law did come in. If you look around the world, 120 countries have security laws, and so why not Hong Kong? We were supposed to have after '97, there was something called Article 23, which was our own security law. But 3 years after the handover, many when it was supposed to get passed, 500,000 people marched. They were against security law for whatever reason, because the unknown. And uh, and finally, what was happening last year is, as everyone around the world witnessed, Hong Kong went through many 8 months of protests. Young people, this one country, two systems that was instituted by Deng Xiaoping, was a good idea at the time, going up to the one country, two systems, going up to 97. Post 97, what happened was many young people who were not around under the British days, they started feeling that, not trusting China. And the one country, two system was really to know that one country comes first. And then Hong Kong has the right to have two systems, a different system that we had under the British. But for many people, they got nervous and they forgot about one country, and they thought, well, two systems. It's like Australia, for argument's sake, having one of your provinces or states, um, suddenly deciding, that they want a separate system from the mother country, from Australia, and somebody, and then it's fine. But what happens is that they forget that Australia is the mother, and you're just a child, that we've granted you the right to have your own system, and that's exactly what happened. So many young people thought, well, we want to be independent, and so they started to carry signs and had their own song, because social media became very, very dangerous, and there was a lot of interference from behind the scenes. We now find that there's actually an article in the paper today. Some of the foreign countries were funding some of these protesters, sending money to the protests, and they've been named these. Listen, it's a known fact. Some countries around the world, they do fund these kind of things, and so the problem was that the people now, after 8 months, a lot of the protests were not peaceful. A lot of the protests were violent. They started off peaceful, but then you had some young people that were being paid on the front, they call them the front line, after the protest. They would then go and smash up the subway, the MTR, they smash up Starbucks, they smash up Maxine's, which is a cake shop, just things that had relationship to China, because I was being interviewed by many reporters who had friends who were working in the front line. They were getting 8,000 Hong Kong, approximately more than 1,000 Aussie dollars, for going and smashing things up, and so it kind of and the police at the beginning. We don't have an army. Our army is the PLA. It's not like in the U.S. where you can call the National Guard in, or or other elements. All we had was police that were used to giving parking tickets and not really controlling protests. They had to learn very quickly. They did a very good job in hindsight in looking at the protests in the U.S. Last month. And some of the force that's been used. We got a bad rap because the media that was coming around were blaming the police for using tear gas and other things. And the U.S. even said, "Oh, we will not sell tear gas to Hong Kong." And at the end of the day, you can see they used much worse tear gas plus. And so it becomes political. I can understand, people around the world. Obviously, we've got every country, EU, even Australia. I mean, Five Eyes, the Five Eyes. You've got the U.S. that suddenly is going to sanction, against Hong Kong, because now we'll decide that Hong Kong is China now. It's not its own place of doing business. If you really get into see what the security law is all about, it's really to protect the people, to protect people from terrorism. And I've said one thing: I'm not worried about the law because I'm not planning on breaking it. I'm not planning on making bombs or ammunition, importing guns from overseas, which is exactly what happened. I mean, some guy just got arrested today. There was the protest yesterday in Hong Kong, and it was July 1st, which is traditional. And police said some guy used a knife and went after a police officer, and there's a picture of the police officer's arm, bleeding, full of blood. I mean, you can't have that. This is not Hong Kong. This cannot go on. It should not go on. So security law is actually a good thing. But of course, because of the political rhetoric against China, everybody now wants to blame China for the virus and all the other problems that they have at home. Politicians are very good at finding other sources of putting blame on things that they mess up on. And so I've learned that. And so I think in general, the public is happy about the security law, and the devil is in the details. I've been here for 50 years. I've lived through 1997 when people thought the end of Hong Kong. This is the end of our freedom. 23 years later, we're freer today than we were under the British administration. The British, with all the things, they did good things for Hong Kong, but at the end of the day, the British always appointed a governor to Hong Kong. We couldn't vote for who was coming out. We lived under, different appointed governors. And Hong Kong people, in general, under the British, I remember it very well, the Chinese were basically subservient. They just stamped everything, even the legislative assembly. The British just paved the way, and the legislators just stamped it. Once China took over, things changed, and you had a Chinese chief executive. And actually, in the basic law of Hong Kong, we can have universal suffrage. So we're allowed to have people to really run for election. And a few years ago, 5 years ago, we're going to have universal suffrage for a chief executive, but it was conditional. China was a baby step forward for China. But again, the legislative assembly, which is really, really divided, they nixed it, and so it didn't get done. But it is in our basic law, and you can say whatever you want, but it just got carried to, freedom of expression is important. But when you start advocating independence, carrying signs, and many people have become misguided. And so you need to kind of have laws in order to protect the country and put everything back on the right track. And I think that's basically what the security law is meant to be. It's not meant to restrict people's freedoms, business as usual. Listen, if China wanted, all they needed to do was just have one country and forget, say, okay, everything, you're now going to follow all China's laws. That's it. But they've said, listen, the security law is here to protect Hong Kong because we were not happy with what was going on last year. And so basically, they just want everything to be, to be have a better life for the people of Hong Kong. And so basically, it's security law, but two systems remains, and they've said it very, very clearly, and that will remain. And I think in the next few months, when people see that not much has changed, I think that basically people will forget about it and go on to some other problem around the world, so politicians can then take aim at that.
I think we have COVID at the moment, and that's sort of tying up just about everybody, and then we dabble with internal politics of various countries. But COVID's not going to go away for a long, long time, and I think it's. I think there's a few more interesting roads to travel before we get out of this.
Well, you're right, because Mike, basically, airline travel, I mean, many businesses will have to reinvent themselves. I mean, airline travel is almost non-existent in the world today, compared to what it used to be. And people will not get on an airplane, many, until they feel comfortable. I think you probably need a test, maybe a 2 or 3 minute test that is very, very almost instantaneous that you'll probably have to go through a test, because to get on an airplane, I think everybody will feel much more comfortable knowing that everyone's been tested and tested negatively, so you're not sitting with someone on the airplane that's infected so many people. I mean, we've just had in Hong Kong, people coming back from India on an airplane. There was in fact 28 infections. Luckily, it's gone into quarantine. But so these are things that you'll have to adjust. The world will have to adjust to with the COVID-19. And if you look at what's happening in the U.S., it's a nightmare. As of they've got 128,000 people already died.
Incredible.
Which is terrible. Incredible. That's the problem with the system, whereby it's decentralized by every state does their own thing.
Yep.
The government has not, lack of leadership. The government has not taken the steps, because politicians are worried about the next election in November and getting reelected and saying, oh, there's no problem. This will go away the same way. They're still saying even today, this will go away the same way that it came eventually, but it will have killed a lot of people and destroyed a lot of businesses and destroyed the lives of many, many families. So, I mean, really, this needs to be government-led. And that's something that's only governments know how to do this. And taking the precautions that we've taken in Hong Kong have really helped to keep the numbers very, very low. And, if you were to go walk it, if you're in Hong Kong at the moment, you would know there's a problem. It's just yes, it's like a non-event right now.
One of the great cities of the world and great locations. It
really is.
It's just stunning.
And nothing has changed. It's stunning. It'll continue. And don't believe the media.
No, I think the media has a lot to be accounted for. Either side, by the way. I think it's hysteria personified, and it's.
Listen, I understand both sides. I understand, people, but. Problem with social media today with the internet is it's unregulated, and social media, you can say anything. The problem is many people read, if it's on the internet, it must be true, and that's totally different than when we were growing up. We didn't have such a thing, and you only could communicate from the TV or radio or newspapers, but today it's all on social media, and that is a real problem, because you can incite, and that's exactly what happened. You can incite people for hatred. You can incite people, because people are very, very gullible. And I found that's one of the biggest problems in the world, not just Hong Kong, but because we're next to China and many countries are worried about the rise of China. Listen, I've been there for 35 years. I've seen China go from being a backward country and with 1.4 billion people to literally being one of the best countries in the world. People, people's lives have literally just blossomed. I mean, they're the number one tourist around the world today. Everyone's trying to cater to them. Their lives, they have one car, two cars, nice homes. In general, they have a decent life, and they're not unhappy. I have a lot of staff in China. They're not unhappy, but I know the rhetoric that goes around about, oh my God, it's terrible. And I think nations fear, Chinese in general are not, they all they want to do is have a better life for their people. It's not easy to run a country of 1.4 billion people. I understand it. And in any country, if people are not happy, they revolt. People in general in China are happy, and because it's 1.4 billion people, you need to have regulations that are maybe unlike the U.S. or Australia, whatever. Listen, every system is different. Every political system is different. I've realized that there is no one system that beats all, because they all have their problems, and you just have to work with it.
Look, born in Germany, raised in Canada, citizen of China now, and one of the great success stories, not only as a Hong Konger, but a globally respected businessman. Where to now, though, for Allan Zeman, Lan Kwai Fong, and, of course, Hong Kong?
I think, we will continue to build out, resorts, property-related, villas, build lifestyle, doing lifestyle events. I think that for us, we dabble in technology, but the problem is technology just changes so quickly, and it's not something that I've kind of abandoned. We have some of it, but we use technology a lot, but it's not something that I want to start tinkering with. But I think
Wise.
we're very. Yes, because it's like a bottomless pit. You create something that's everybody goes into, and then suddenly your neighbor has got something that's better mousetrap. And so for us, I think I always say, do what you're good at doing. We build very nice product. We design very nice product. We will continue to do that. Continue the lifestyle of making people happy. Every business that I've ever done is really improving the lifestyle of people, from being in the fashion business originally to property development to F&B to every kind of business. I have a film company that I've had for 30 years in the U.S. So it's really about a lifestyle for people, and that's something that we will always try to do and always try to be part of.
And what about for Hong Kong, though? Where do you see the future?
I think Hong Kong will continue. I mean, the beauty of Hong Kong is that we are part of China, and the beauty of Hong Kong. China 2 years ago came through with a new standard that they're going to be having something called the Greater Bay Area, the GBA they call it, which is 11 cities within southern China.
Wow.
Hong Kong, Macau, Shenzhen, Guangzhou. Those are the four main cities, and then others like Zhuhai, Foshan, some of the peripheral cities. But the four cities combined all are connected by high-speed rail. It now takes Hong Kong to Shenzhen takes a half hour on the train. And
It's amazing,
actually
isn't it?
it could be quicker. Yeah, and so the borders of Hong Kong are really expanding. So you have in that area, all within 1.5 2 hour radius of travel time. It's 70 million people. Hong Kong has 7.5 million people, but you talk about 70 million people, and with a GDP last year of 1.65 trillion US dollars.
Wow,
Very, very wealthy. Yes. It's actually beats Russia, and it's bigger than South Korea. And so that is the future of Hong Kong for Hong Kong. Doing what we have, we have independent judiciary, our low tax base, financial center in the world, in one of the financial centers of the world. That will continue and probably become the financial center for the Greater Bay Area for all that business that exists out there. And the border will become porous. You'll have people going to setting up businesses just across the border, and suddenly that's the future of Hong Kong. Hong Kong on its own needs to change because at one time Hong Kong was 17% of China's GDP. China depended on Hong Kong, but today we're only about less than 3% because China's really come up and doing their own thing. We do have the common law system, which is respected around the world, the independent judiciary. That will continue. So Hong Kong will continue to have its place, but its place is being part of China. China needs Hong Kong. Hong Kong is the gateway to the world for China, and also the gateway to China from the rest of the world, because of our judiciary, because of our low tax base, and head offices will continue to open up in Hong Kong. So that's something that will continue. And I just see, once we get past this rhetoric that we're kind of living with, and this nightmare actually, and including COVID-19 and the protests, hopefully we can then get back to a normal life and the Hong Kong people having a much better life than they have right now. Our strength is China.
Now, last time we spoke many, many years ago, and we still look the same. We may lie a bit about that, but we're allowed to. But I meant to ask you then, because you're the entertainment person, the Mr. Entertainment almost of right. Hong Kong. Yes. Can you dance? Do you have any good moves?
Actually, I can dance, but believe it or not, Mr. Entertainment does not drink.
I know water. That, yes.
I'm very, very healthy. I've never drank a beer in my life. Don't tell any Aussies that.
No, but I won't. My lips are sealed, Allan.
I've never drank a beer in my life. I just don't like the taste, and I don't drink alcohol or wine or anything. I'm wow. just it's just one of my things. But I sell a lot of it, and so I think the key is to know what your customers like to yes. do, and that's been my success, I guess.
Well, I used to help my dancing. A few drinks, I would create new moves every time, and after a while, I was told to stop moving on the floor, so I stopped completely.
Yeah.
Allan Zeman, a real pleasure, and we must do this next time we're in Hong Kong, and
okay,
and do it from one of your restaurants or hotels, okay. And yes. We could have the Allan Zeman perspective of the new Hong Kong.
Absolutely, and Hong Kong will go from strength to strength, and so everybody just have faith, keep it up, and keep coming back to Hong Kong. I guarantee you'll have the time of your life.
Allan, thank you very much.
My pleasure.